to Changing the Sales Game on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman, and I'm excited that you're joining me today for this solo episode again. My guest was unable to attend, so I said, let me jump on and talk about not a very sexy topic, but sales and systems and why it's important. So here's the deal. As you listen to the show, I certainly hope that you enjoy the content between my guests and I, but also I know that changing your sales game, changing your career, change whatever it is you're facing can be daunting. And I know hard sometimes and challenging to navigate. So in the show notes, I have a gift for you. It's my communication style assessment. You know the deal. You'll get 2 reports. The first report will just spotlight your natural communication superpower. So when you communicate without thinking, how does your message land? Kind of important to know that. We want to lean into it and build on that strength. Flip side, when we're communicating with people 180 degrees different than us, how is your message landing? So especially if it's a new client or a new prospect or a center of influence that you're trying to engage, we want to make sure that we show up our best. So make sure that lower score, that report that you get with the lower score, could be a blind spot. And that's the report I would really read with a keen eye. So again, my gift to you. Now, my quote today, again, to set the stage for this systems talk, right? Sales and systems, if you will, is by Vincent van Gogh. And Vincent says, "Great things are done by a series of small things done together." So in other words, right, we need to create a system of all these small tasks, habits, string them together. And then what ends up happening is we can easily achieve, and here's the important word, sustainable results. Whatever that change in behavior is, that'll dictate what the results are. So what sales team, this is the question you really should contemplate today. What sales system do you use if you have one at all? So it's interesting. I just had a conversation before recording my show, and we were talking about sales. He was a salesperson too, but his perspective or part of the conversation really reflected on the mindset portion, right? Or that mindset perspective of sales. Now, there's no judgment here, right? But there is an inner game. I know that when we talk about sales and things that we face as salespeople, and there's an inner game going on, that underlying conversation, that negative record player, right, is always playing. So our mindset and inner dialogue really can be a catalyst, right, for us to propel forward. It also could be a logjam for or stifling what our sales success should potentially look at or look to do. So in addition to mindset, I believe that every salesperson and leader out there, that we need to create tangible, duplicatable sales systems that can be taught and then repeated so that we can better predict sales results, our return on time, our return on investment, right? All of those things. But also if you're a leader, tangible things to coach and teach so we can address behaviors. Behaviors is what actually drives numbers. I can't manage a number. If someone's faltering or not meeting their sales goals, why, right? That's the question to ask. And then what within the system could they potentially be breaking down? So as a sales leader, we really need to construct what that system looks like. And I remember 100 years ago, right? When I started my business, I sat down at my desk and thought, well, all right, I was successful in sales. I want to teach it, but why? How? What did I do that made me not only successful at the end as a wealth advisor, but also as a sales team leader? So literally I sat down and I just started writing down what were the behaviors that I did every day, and instantly realized that I had a system that I used and it was repeatable. Who knew? And then I started using that over and over. And that's how I started to construct my training and my business. And when I did my outreach, I had something tangible to talk about that made sense and that you could see the repercussion, right? Put a system in place, rinse and repeat, and then we could keep those sustainable numbers coming in, behaviors changing, all of those things. So for you, those of you that have been following me, you know that my particular sales system is 7 steps. So you might have longer ones, you might have shorter ones. It doesn't matter. Just be sure to create these duplicatable habits or behaviors that you can dial into and observe to say, yes, this is a good behavior to get the sales I want. Trust me, at the end of the day, it's going to save you time and money, and it's just to increase revenue with ease and grace. So the idea is we have to start working smarter, certainly not any harder than we already are working. So I'm going to share some ideas for you to consider or utilize as you begin to build your sales process or your sales system. Well, the first step is, again, sit down, think of those habits that you are doing, and look with a clear eye of, are they productive or are they busy work? Okay, there's a definite difference there. So the first step is to develop those daily habits that become your routine, right? And then what happens is we don't think about them, we just kind of do them. And then what I want you to do is, again, measure them. So write them down and then measure, are these productive habits or are these not productive habits? Or are they just busy work? So example would be, if you have to make daily phone calls to your prospects or to your clients or to centers of influence who are going to continue to feed your pipeline and your business, that should be a good habit. It should be a priority. And perhaps you should be doing that every day. Whereas looking at your emails, I'm not saying that's not important, but we want to schedule them, time them, so we minimize those efforts so we can make more time, phone calls, networking, whatever that might be. Now, to create this type of routine or habit, you really do need to create or prepare an infrastructure to create or support whatever those behaviors are that you determine in your system. So I'm going to give you an example. If you use a calendar system, which by the way, you should, make sure that it's compatible or it talks to your CRM system. This way, between the two, you stay scheduled so follow-up doesn't fall through the cracks, but you could keep notes, you could keep all that tangible information. Your CRM system maybe put a picture of the client so you remember who they are. Sometimes we don't just remember names, but you get the idea. The calendar and your CRM, that should be working together. The other thing I have found with CRM systems, the less complicated, the easier to use, the more we'll use it. So again, pick a CRM system that will work well for you, your business, your company, whatever it might be. The other thing that the CRM and the calendar can help you do is create or support whatever your follow-up system is. So example would be my follow-up system is CPR, right? Keep the client alive. But the CPR stands for consistent, persistent, respectful. That's really the big word, follow-up. Now, when I go into my clients, it depends who they are, what division I'm talking within. So for banking, for example, retail, they have an onboarding process. Maybe they reach out after 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, and then ongoing quarterly. So we don't lose touch with those clients. On the wealth management side, it might be quarterly calls after we get them onboarded, but it might be every day that I'm talking to that client initially. So whatever your follow-up system, it has to work for your division, your job, your whatever position you have, to the point where customer sees our name or email and they go, oh, it's them again. That's your follow-up system's not working. It should be that they're engaged and they're eager and they're appreciative that you're following up in a respectful way. Again, that word respect kind of is important for me. Next, you want to make sure the other piece of the puzzle, kind of in the middle there, right? That preparation, that follow-up is my last step. But right in the middle is questions. You have to create questions that are, again, that rinse and repeat. So I remember when I first started my business, I sat down, I started to curate and use questions and put them in an agenda, because when I usually would meet with board of directors or groups of the CEO, CFO, CLO, et cetera. So I would have packets with an agenda. On mine, I had the questions I would ask so I could take notes and fill in the blanks, organize. So when I go back to do my proposal, right, that agenda grounded me for me to create a proposal, easy peasy. Flip side, I would send that agenda out in advance to my client and say, hey, here are some of the things that I think we need to talk about to get to the root cause of whatever you're looking to accomplish. Is there anything I'm missing that I should add to the agenda? And that's kind of cool because it gets the client involved and engaged even before the meeting. So you start to spotlight your expertise, your level of care, your level of respect for their time. All of those things are happening very subtly. But I have my questions organized. I've been using them for 20 years. And my agenda, again, I'd go in, I put the client's name or prospect's name at the top, the date. I send it out to them with my agenda items, right? The key points I think we need to explore, and then ask them to weigh in as well. That is a great tool. Again, that it's a rinse and repeat. As soon as you create it, just put it into a Word doc, and then you can update it easily with the date and the new client's name, center of influence, whoever it might be. The other thing I have found is that questions, having them prepared, wonderful, right? We could take notes, wonderful. It helps me on the back end, right? I'm all about saving time because that saves money so that I could create the proposal on the back end. Well, guess what I see is one of the biggest missing skills, I'm going to say. We can have all these systems in place, but what is the system in our brain? And for me, that comes down to listening. So we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Really, in my long time doing this, I've learned that we should actually be listening 70 to 80% of the time, so that we're reflecting and embracing what the client is saying. And then that's where we're able to ask follow-up questions to dig deeper as to what's happening in that client or potential client's life today and how I can help, but also create a position where I'm a planning partner that they constantly come back to me as a resource, right? So all of that is done through listening. So I want to share an interesting story, let's just say. I remember years ago, my kids, we were at a hockey tournament, and one of the dads had just come back to a hunting expedition where they were hunting wild boar. And he went through, it was kind of gross talking about this at dinner, but he was sharing the experience of getting there and going on the hunt, and, you know, what kind of rifle they had, whatever the information was. And I just sat there quietly listening, and the men were asking questions and, you know, the barbaricness of it or whatever. And so at the end, he finished his story, and I was sitting across from him, and I happened to just look at him, and I said, I have a question. He said, sure. And I said, how did you feel? Because he had to gut the boar, I guess, to get the guts out of it, and they use the meat to eat, whatever. Okay, a little bit too much information, right? But I said, when you gutted that boar, how did that make you feel? I'm so curious, right? Because you have this massive, powerful creature, and you're, you know, cutting its inside out. And he looked at me and he said, well, I've never really thought about that. And I said, okay, you don't have to answer. I'm just very curious. Later on, one of the other dads came over to me and he said, what made you think of that? And I said, you know, as he was talking and discussing and sharing his experience, all I kept thinking is, oh my goodness, what did he feel when he killed this boar? What did he feel when he cut this boar, right? It was an act of masculinity or whatever, but how did you feel about it? And this one dad, he was in awe of me, which struck me even funnier. They were saying to my husband, she's brilliant. And I was just saying, no, I have a messed up mind, right? But that's the act of active listening, where you come up with a question. It's almost like a pattern interrupt, that the person you're speaking to almost leans in and says, wait, what did you ask me? Because, and here's the reality. I wasn't trying to be a busybody or invasive. I was really curious. After listening to that whole story, I was curious about that emotional connection at the end. Okay. No good or bad, no judgment here. Just how do you react when you have those questions prepared? Are you asking those follow-up questions like, how did you feel when you cut the boar? If you're not actively listening, you're never going to be able to come up with those questions. You're never going to be able to dig deeper and really uncover what's going on for the client. And you're never going to position yourself as a planning partner. So listening, kind of an important skill within the framework of the system. So my last tip for ensuring that your system works is to have a clear path and a defined follow-up process, right? So this is where I see 90, probably about 98% of salespeople, they don't have a clear follow-up system. Again, mine is the CPR, consistent, persistent, respectful. You can use my follow-up or your own follow-up. Just make sure you dial in and create that little system within the bigger system, so that you never, ever miss a call. And here's the magic that happens with follow-up. And I've done other shows on this as well. So go back and kind of find them and listen. But the magic of follow-up is it really keeps you top of mind. So even if I'm following up with you today, and you make a decision a month from now, even though I'm not going to call you 3 months from today, right? This was our conversation. A month from now, when you have or something changes that you need me, you're going to actually call me, even though I'm not going to call you for 2 more months, because I'm what we call top of mind. So please, please inspect your system, expect your systems within the system, if you will. Work on those listening skills and make sure that you have some kind of follow-up process in place. And then whatever systems, CRM systems or calendar systems, again, that can support that. I know I just talked about a lot of things. I'm a bit of a whirlwind when I share information, but I really hope break it down, pick one thought, one concept, and evaluate how you're doing it. And is it good? Great, keep doing it. If it's missing pieces, what's it missing? I would love to hear from you if you're struggling with anything or if you have successes, please share. I love hearing success stories and systems that work. You never know. I'm always open to learning as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode on systems and sales, and you've been listening to Changing the Sales Game with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I love you all, and I am honored that you join me weekly to kind of dissect things and look at them, because sales is important, but it really should be fun. It should be easy. It should be engaging. So all of this information I've shared today, information's a beautiful thing. If you do nothing with it, it's just information in your brain. Please take a tip or two that I shared, apply them in your life and your sales process, and report back. Let me know how it works out for you. I love you all. Thank you for joining me. And I do hope you enjoyed this solo episode. Until next time, have a great week, everybody. Thanks again.